Hello and welcome to Talking Dogs on a Monday. Of course, we're back to discuss all matters. Paddy Kehoe suspended Ceilings Gold Cup, but it was a wonderful weekend, plenty to reflect on. I'm joined as always, or should I say, for the first time this year, by the exiled dub, Tommy Lyons. He dumped us last year for I don't know what stable tour of Willie Mullins or Gordon Elliott or whoever it was. And we're also joined by the assassin. The assassin would never leave us in the lurch, I know that. Dylan Brennan joining us from his Kildare base. It's about 112 acres down there. He's producing champions, I've been told. Anyway, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to see you. Tommy, good weekend of racing. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, plenty to talk about now. The reason I dumped you last week is I have to do some work at some stage. I can't afford to be messing about on podcasts all weekend. Well, for some.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that now. I had to get dressed this morning to do this. Think about it. I have 3 kids outside here. Like, it's midterm. So if I let it roar, don't be upset, folks. I'm just telling my kids to keep it down. Dylan, you're a busy man. You've got plenty of kids as well. No time to waste.
No, never get a minute between kids and dogs. I don't know which is harder work.
I can tell you, kids are harder work, okay?
Yeah, probably are.
A good weekend in the Gold Cup, of course, gentlemen. We saw a couple of notable non-runners prior to the start of Saturday's action. Sadly, Clona Duke, the juvenile derby champion, was pulled out of the competition. And Dogs Anonymous, his kennel companion, meaning that only 4 went to traps in the second heat. But we still had room for a shock in that contest. The derby winner, Born Warrior, was beaten again, but I think the signs were good. He sort of came forward for his opening round defeat. And then a couple of brilliant performances. Galloping Sydney, Rathdown Molly, of course, winning so well, seeing off the Derby champion. We also had Check for Sir, which I think took a step forward in his career. And then, of course, we'll get to Bogger Hunter, who overturned another holiday. Let's start at the opening heat, gentlemen. Best to start at the start, shall we say. The opening heat, Tommy, we spoke about Galloping Sydney last week, myself and BC, Barry Collin and Declan Donoghue. We were mighty impressed with him as he lowered the colours of Born Warrior. He backed it up, even more impressive on Saturday. Didn't take a flyer, but showed terrific, proper early speed. Story's Law hit the ground well, but in a matter of strides, Galloping Sydney was gone on them. This was proper open class early speed. You think dogs have early speed until you see them up against the likes of a Galloping Sydney. This was raw.
Yeah, when I was going through this race prior to Saturday night, I was wondering how he might get clear. I thought there might be a bit of a battle for the early lead, and I actually thought what might happen was that I might actually set up for Kilgraney Sydney. I was kind of feeling half kind of smug when I saw him coming out of the second bend, thinking Kilgraney Sydney now is in a good enough position. But actually, Galloping Sydney had, as you said, didn't fly out, had to actually battle, edged in a little bit at the bend, as most greyhounds do anyway, and rode a bit of a bump. But most impressive, I think, was that first bend to about halfway, where he kind of opened up a lead of about 5 lengths. That was deeply impressive. Streams of Sydney ran a superb race again. Unbelievable finishing speed. To come by Kilgraney Sydney as easily as she did, I think that was a huge run as well. But in fairness to you, Ian, we don't say this very often. You kept your head with all the Sydneys.
I was more nervous before this race than I was Derby finals. I'm telling you, because I knew if you make one trip up, you're going to keep tripping up. It's going to be like when you sort of lose your footing and you're trying to gather yourself up and you're afraid you're just going to fall smack flat in your face, sadly, or thankfully. Well, maybe in certain cases, sadly, it didn't happen. I got a text from Barry Call about 30 seconds after the race, and I can't exactly tell you the contents, but it was something in the lines of, well, feck you anyway. You got it right, Dylan, this was a great display by Galloping Sydney, not just the commentator. Galloping Sydney, it's a joy to watch pure early speed like this. This is why, I've spoken about the 5-2-5 yard competitions in Shelbourne Park. After this, there's no real open 5-2-5 yard competition until, well, I don't know. There's the Winter Racing Festival at the end of the year, and there'll be a couple of mini opens and open 5-2-5s through the night. But this is the major 5-2-5 yard competition of the year at Shelbourne Park, and then it's done. These dogs need to be able to show their wear. I know Galloping Sydney's 1 over 550, but he's really specialist 5-2-5 yard dog.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's just got raw pace. Like he didn't even come away that well the other night, but like you said, just in a matter of strides, he found his way to the front. He was the 2 dog, I think it was Story's Law. He pinged out, edged in, kind of squeezed up the Kilgraney dog on the inside. But I agree as well. I thought the second dog ran a massive race. She's absolutely flying. But like you say, I think it was the first round of the Derby. Gallop in Sydney, I think, really caught my eye with the pace he showed that night after missing the kick. But I think he's a proper 525 dog. I'd say the 550 probably stretches him, and if he brushes up on the trapping a bit, I think he's still doing 208s, 209s or whatever. But he's just got pure raw pace and loads of early, and it'll take a good one to lead him up anyway. That's for sure.
Tommy, he looks the type of dog, like, obviously this is top on his list at the moment, the Gold Cup, but like, you could nearly map out his campaign. Like, you'd be talking about the likes of a Select Stakes and the Laurels later in the year, those type of competitions. Of course, you'll have a crack at the Derby and see if he's a little bit stronger this year, but you'd imagine that's the sort of route they'd go down with him.
Yeah, like he has the form in Greyhound Park with big sectionals and big runs and all that. You'd imagine they will. You know what? It is a kind of pity, the point you're making about the 5-to-5 competitions in Shelbourne Park, because you imagine how good a competition this always feels. The Gold Cup feels like it's very early in the year, and it's when dogs aren't fully wound up, and you know, they've got bigger targets further down the line. Even though it's a valuable contest, and it's you know, traditionally it's a very good competition, but you just feel like, wouldn't you love to see this now maybe 2 months down the line, and how good it would be, the depth of talent in it, maybe 2 months down the line, or maybe a different competition 2 months down the line. It just feels like, it always feels, from a punting point of view, it's difficult because you don't really know where for Greyhound stand, and we get on to Born Warrior after a while. I think he's making lovely progress, but I still don't think I want to back him for this competition, if you know what I mean. You know, he might win it, but you just don't really feel, you know exactly where they stand. So Gallop in Sydney is probably well positioned to take advantage because he's in superb form. But Stream of Sydney, she is very much a big player in the outright still.
Yeah, Pat Buckley has always thought a lot of this. I noticed over the last while, you know, any night that it would have been on Racing Post Greyhound Television, the bookmakers lay or offer prices for the sporting races. This lady's appeared in 2 or 3 of those cards, and each and every time she's appeared, there's been shrewd money for her. You know, so they obviously think a lot of her. I think she's really coming into herself as we speak. You know, she does 28.40 the other night in defeat. She did 28.33, set the standard in the opening round. She's very strong. She'll stay 600 yards, so they can go anywhere with her. And we know that Pat Buckley's not afraid to campaign them against the dogs if so suits. And, you know, wherever she turns up, she has to be considered given her power and strength, and, you know, obviously clear ability.
For sure, even in the back in the Winter Racing Festival, they met Gallop in Sydney and Stream of Sydney, and she was desperately unlucky. And sadly, I think you were on the winner, and unfortunately, I was on the runner up that night. So what's new? But she you know with bitches, when they get on a bit of a roll, running well, they can strengthen up and they can turn into anything, you know, in terms of something special. She looks very smart, but you just can't take anything away from Gallop in Sydney. He's going to improve as well, so he's going to set a target for her. She will need a bit of luck in running, and I kind of think the round the other night kind of set it up nicely to talk about maybe the way races can pan out depending on, you know, makeup of races and number of greyhounds in races and all that. But look, I take nothing away from the winner, but Stream of Sydney is still a player as well.
Yeah, Dylan, I just want to touch on something. I noticed that Kilgraney Sydney was returned the 6-4 favourite. That came as a bit of a surprise to me. You know, obviously a hugely talented greyhound. You know, has dipped under 28 seconds a couple of times in trials, not sadly in races, and probably doesn't win as often as he should, you know, to justify being 6-4 favourite in a race where he looked like at best turning sort of third.
Yeah, I only you say that now, I didn't even realise, and again, surprised by that. Whether it has to do with his trap draw, I don't know, because he kind of needs red, doesn't he?
But that's his box, yeah, there's no question, yeah. That's his box, yeah.
But yeah, again, like, you would have never, you know, like you say, probably turning second, third at best. He was never going to lead Gallop in Sydney. I'd say it probably had more to do with the draw than anything. I did worry a little bit before the race that maybe Gallop in Sydney was a little bit further out than ideal. But I still probably would have had him favoured because he looked the most likely leader. I think Kilgraney's drawn one again the next round, but I'd imagine it's to do with the draw more than anything.
Yeah, I think as the dog gets older, Tommy, like Galloping Sydney now, who's 25 starts under his belt, a dog like that was boring for the inside early in his career, they do tend to get cuter. You know what I mean? I was never really concerned about the draw. Once he didn't flop out of boxes or anything like that, because I thought 5 would go up straight. Stream of Sydney was never going to move wide, so I thought he'd get his run into the corner. It was just a case of trapping on terms, like we saw the other Colby missing it from 5 in the opening round. He could never get involved thereafter, because when he sees room, he's edging inwards, and then obviously there's no room on the corner. But Galloping Sydney, I thought he was always like to go up fast. I was just surprised that he didn't start favourite.
It was a big jump forward too, Ian. Sorry, Tommy.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
It was a big jump forward too, because I think he's done 15.95 both nights, Galloping Sydney, and he's obviously coming home over, what is it, 3.5 lengths quicker than Saturday night. So he's obviously improving. The first night obviously brought him on a fair bit, but sorry, Tommy, you were right.
Oh no, I was only going to say that the point he was making, like the greyhounds aren't stupid. You get the very exceptional cases where a dog just turns right out of traps or turns left out of traps and does that all his career, or nearly all his career. But in general, they're clever enough. Like if you tend to go in hard left and get a few bumps along the way, by the time you've had 25 races, I think you've learned that maybe this isn't the way I should be going. Like, you learn a little bit along the way. They're not. They're not all clued in from the very start.
Yeah, after 5 or 6 starts, it might have been a more of a concern. But I think Una Creed and Graham Holland can look forward to winning plenty of races from the middle with Galloping Sydney, given his early speed. On to the second. He's only 4 of them lined up following the withdrawal of Clona Duke and Dogs Anonymous. And another holiday. I've got to speak about the betting again, Tommy. I made him a short price favourite. I went even money in the card in a 6-dog race. I thought he'd been better suited by a 6-dog race than a 4-dog race. We sort of spoke briefly about this. To be returned 1-4, just I haven't checked that out. I assume it's correct. It seems crazy short for me in a race where the strong running duo of Cloneden Flash and Clona Blue were likely to get a clear passage. And Bogger Hunter, who would do 28.30 with his eyes closed, was certainly a big threat. And admission, I did a couple of trios with another holiday finishing out of the frame, given the fact that they might get to him early. And Bogger Hunter did exactly that and worked out nicely. But strange SP. Missed the kick slightly, showed his early speed, challenged around the opening 2 bends, but you knew with Bogger Hunter up beside him, Bogger Hunter's not afraid of the cut and thrust of racing. He doesn't mind mixing it. And the two of them went shoulder to shoulder down the back straight. Bogger Hunter got the better of him into the 3rd bend and eased on. Another holiday in just the 2nd run of the year, faded home. But just surprised by the SP, but not surprised by Bogger Hunter.
Yeah, like the SP. The SP is right. It works out to 136.6% for the 4 runners. So I assume it is correct. I was like you. I was concerned when there were only 4 in the race, because it's exactly what you say. It's part of the reason I'm not a huge anti-post punter is that an awful lot of greyhound racing is about the draw on the day and the makeup of a race. And why I'm never mad keen to commit to something early in the competition, because I probably won't back it myself. Like another holiday in a 6-dog race, you say that might get around the bend, as it happened the other night. Okay, Bogger Hunter broken, and was leaning in on top of another holiday around the bend. Another holiday showed terrific early pace after missing the kick to squeeze up in between greyhounds and get to the inside. But Bogger Hunter was right there, and as you said, he'd do the time every night of the week, Bogger Hunter. But if that was a 6-dog race, you've got traps 3 and 4 in. Does Bogger Hunter get across near another holiday? Probably not. So another holiday gets around and might slip a couple lengths clear, and then probably safety qualifies. Might get picked up, might not. Probably safety qualifies. Like if the Derby final if there had been 4 withdrawals in the Derby final and there was a dead match between Crafty Kokoro and Born Wire would have won the Derby, wouldn't he? Wouldn't she?
Kokoro.
Sorry?
Crafty Kokoro.
Crafty Cora, wouldn't she have won the Derby if it was a 2-dog race?
She certainly would have been mighty close. She was going to be mighty close, but for the 3rd bend traffic anyway in the 6-dog race. So can imagine in a 2-dog race where she just stalks in behind him. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. The point, the similarity is that when you have a specialist early pacer like another holiday, the makeup of the race is hugely important, and having 5 rivals is actually the most important thing, because you're going to have strong running greyhounds who will get a run when on another occasion they wouldn't get a run. This is a great example because 3 and 4 were empty boxes, and Bogger Hunter was leaning in on top of Another Holiday, just the way it was cutting the bend. It wasn't doing it maliciously.
I think Teddy Hegarty said it best of all on Saturday night. Now, which surprises me is the dogs returned 1-4 because Teddy said to me before the race, he said, "Well, sure, he'd prefer a 9 or 10 dog race." You know what I mean? And then he's right. You know what I mean? Dylan 1-4 Another Holiday. He was ginned. Bogger Hunter wasn't, though. He's a brother, obviously, to the beaten Derby favourite Callaway Pro-Am, who actually trialled very well at Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. But Bogger Hunter, a good winner. He's a very fast greyhound. We've always known that.
Yeah, and he's very quick down the back. His pace from 2 to 3 is, when he ran in that puppy stake, he was running over some really fast pups to the third bend. And from Another Holiday's point of view, he probably turned down the back with the wrong dog. But like you say, if the race probably didn't suit him, we know he's all about early pace. That's where he wins his race. He's not the strongest. So the more dogs in behind him that are going to run into one another and hold each other up, that's what he wants. And like you say, you had a lot of strong dogs in behind that were going to just get clear runs at him. And he missed a kick anyway. That was as soon as boxes open, he was in trouble. He paced up really well, but he has a tendency to do that too. Go back looking at splits and some of his runs in Shelbourne, he's thrown in a couple of 217s, I think, and 220 odds, and you can't do that in this company. But you still probably would have said whatever about maybe not winning it. You probably still would have said he was a certainty to qualify, but it just didn't pan out for him. And take nothing away from Bogger Hunter. He's very fast, and the second dog is too.
I was just going to say, we've spoken about 3 or 4 minutes about this race. We haven't even mentioned Clone de Blue. He's only beaten a half a length. This is a dog that's been running out of his skin in recent weeks. I know he was third last week and fourth the previous week, but if you actually look at his form since the start of the year, he's won a good 550. He was beaten a half length, another good 550. He's been flying.
Yeah, and he's a quirky enough dog now. He has a bit of a quirk to him, but he's got loads of gears. I'd say he'd run down anything. He's that type of dog. I remember he picked up Blue Janeo one night in Shelbourne, and probably could have picked her up the following week as well. And she's strong. But he did a 2:30 or something out. He walked out, and like you say, I know the front two kind of rubbed one another up and didn't really get the clearest of runs, but to still only come home a half length behind him. He's the type of dog that he's very, very quick. He has his quirk, but I wouldn't like him now to be turning close to, because I'd say he chased down anything.
And Clonedon Flash qualifying for Paddy Kehoe back in third. Tommy, he'll have bigger targets with Princess Zoe maybe on the scene in Cheltenham, but Clonedon Flash, I saw Paddy there on Saturday night, looked very happy in himself.
Yeah, let's qualify. You would of course, be a bit disappointed Another Holiday didn't find a way to get through to the next round, but like, kind of know what it is with Another Holiday. If it's caught early enough, it's probably in trouble. But Clonedon Flash is kind of lightly raced, and she ran a fine race and entitled to improve a bit too.
Yeah, he sure has. That was only his 10th start the other night. On to the third heat, where Born Warrior was in action, but it was Rathdown Molly who said, "Get out of my way" on that opening corner for trainer Mary Gilbert and Bill Mulholland, who's living the dream, I hear. This daughter, Droopy Sydney, and some ginger. Another great night for Droopy Sydney while we're at it. 6 winners on the night, 3 heat winners. What can we say about Droopy Sydney? Anyway, there'll be a lot of people looking for a cross to Droopy Sydney in a few years' time. Born Warrior, I thought, came forward, but let's not get too hung up on Born Warrior for the moment. We can talk about him in a minute. Let's talk about Rathdown Molly. Tommy, we've all, I think, been fans of this lady from pretty early. She has lovely early speech, just has a very willing attitude. And the other night was a sort of a more mature display from her than we've seen. She was challenged early. She had to force her way through on that opening corner, and once doing so, while Born Warrior came to challenge her at third bend, you just got the sense that she'd kick again when Born Warrior edged off that final bend, as he always does, and she turned out a very, very deserving winner.
She did, and the one thing you'd really love about her is the way she tracks a lot around the track. You know what I mean? Especially off that last bend. I mean, you can, if you do. I know Born Warrior might exaggerate it a bit because he goes so wide, but if you track the way she does around that last bend, you're going to probably steal half length to 3/4 of length off most greyhounds if they're challenging you. So if you're in front, now, fairness, again, reasonably lightly raced. all recent form stacks up very well. You know, third in the fastest heat of the first round. Boy, prior to that, from drawn in one, just a smashing little greyhound is what she is now.
Yeah, she's 66 pounds of her. She's not too small. You'd like one like her in the kennel, Dylan. She's as we'd always describe her, she's a dinger.
Yeah, no, she is. She's very likable. Loads of early gear. She's tough. Like Tommy said, when you rail like that off the last bend, it's they have to go around you to pass you, and that was the problem Born Warrior had. He just couldn't get around her. She just kept on finding on the front end, and she's got a nice enough draw as well. The next night, I'd say it'd probably be fancying her chances of leading around again. But no, she's good. Like I think she's a 28-20 or 30 run on her card, and even though she did everything right the other night, she still probably gives you the impression that off a ping break she'd go quicker again. So she's a likable lady, and she'll be tough to lead the next night as well.
Yeah, she's a really likable lady, and I'm sure Des and Mary would love to have a finalist in the Gold Cup. They've had plenty of fast greyhounds in the past, some real stars, and Rathdown Molly is the latest in the line. There'll be fingers crossed, toes crossed, whatever you can cross that. Hopefully she progresses. She is drawn in trap 3 in the opening semi-final. You know, Kilgraney, Sydney Cleveland flashing her inside. You'd fancy her chances of leading both of them. And if she holds Crafty Bonanza into the corner, she could easily lead around the second bend. And it's a case of catch me if you can. In behind her, Born Warrior, Dylan, we'll lead with you, the Derby champion. I thought he'd run well in the opening round without ever looking a threat to Galloping Sydney. Obviously, he looked more of a threat to Rathdown Molly. He charged into the corner. He held a narrow lead. He cut in, like he was the reason he took a bump. It was his own fault. He cut in on Rathdown Molly, and the two of them bumped, and he came out of it second best. He charged again into the third bend, but you knew what he was going to do off the final bend. It's what he does every night. But 28.64 in the opening round, and on this occasion does 28.52. So if you take the bump out of it, he's probably improved 2.5, 3 lengths. If he finds another 2.5, 3 lengths, he's a major player. We know how fast he is, and he can trap better than he has done the last 2 nights. It could happen, and it could happen on the night that matters. I'm sure Jennifer O'Donnell is more than happy with his progress.
Yeah, no, look, and he's probably he's just still finding his feet after obviously winning the Derby. He's had a break. He's probably still not 100%, but he did. It was a right good battle the other night. But like you say, it's very hard, and it's very hard for any dog, but maybe, like you say, he's probably still not 100%. He's probably going to improve again from it. It's very hard to, when you're stuck out wide of a bitch like Rathdown Molly, who, like I said earlier, just keeps on finding. And he looked to have a measure coming off the last bend, but like you say, you knew what was coming. You knew he was just going to take that swing out wide, and it probably cost him in the end. But I think Connections have been more than happy with what they've seen so far. I'd say he's qualifying. He's taking a step forward each week, and I'd say he'll probably take another step forward this week. So he's still there, and he'll be tough enough now to hold. So he will, if he can just improve that extra couple of lengths that he can.
He's out in trap 6 again, Tommy. He has checked for Sir and Galloping Sydney in his inside, amongst others. But a pleasing run from him. He's a real 5-5 yard greyhound, but who wants the 550 yard run up? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, but he's so speedy. You can't rule him out. He's never finished out of the first 3. So, it'd be a surprise to me now if he wasn't in the final.
His fastest time over 5-5 is in defeat in Shelbourne Park.
28.40. What was he behind that night?
28.02 the winner did that night. Half-a.
Oh yeah, in fairness, he beat a lot.
It's just there's not a lot to that statement. I was only trying to. It was a bit of trivia. I would love where he is now, because if he was coming out doing 28.10 last week and this week, I would just be going, well, he's not going to be around doing clocks when it comes to Derby time again. He just won't, because I'm sure Jennifer O'Donnell could tune him up and make him the greatest certainty of all time in this competition from the start. Could have, but that wouldn't be good training. She knows She's bred to know a lot more about greyhound racing than that. This dog is actually going to be there with every chance. There's also going to be every chance, I think, come the final, and please God, he will qualify for it. There's a good chance that he'll be beaten too. Do you know what I mean? He'll go there, in my opinion, he'll go there with the same chances he had last weekend, the same chance he has this weekend coming. If he gets there, he'll go there with a great chance and will probably go off favourite maybe for the final. It's not to say he'll definitely win, but I just think he's exactly where I want him to be right now if he was mine.
Yeah.
I
think I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I think, as you say yourself, you don't want him coming out fully tuned like an elastic band. You keep an elastic band stretched. When you let it go, it doesn't have the same elasticity.
No, exactly. That's exactly it. Look at the greyhounds at the end of the day, and I think we kind of take for granted just how much ability in training ability and from trainer and from greyhound alike that it takes to have a champion like Born Wire and like all those other dogs that got to the Derby final last year and to all the other big stake finals and what it takes, what's involved on a daily and weekly basis with them. I think, I'm you don't always get, it takes so much out of any greyhound to win a Derby. You don't always get them coming back and showing their form again, and a lot of them disappear into the ether or they're into breeding sheds or whatever else they're doing. But like, it's great to see him back, and even though he's not winning races at the moment, you just know it's there. Everything is there. The pace is there. The ability is there. You just know it's just bubbling under the surface, and that's exactly where I'd want it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to mention Ballycount Liam, who for the second week running ran a big race in the fee. He's only a half length behind the Derby champion in third spot for Dean Harper. He's based down your direction, Tommy. He's making a good old twist of this training game. Ballycount Liam, £85 in the opening round, having won at the Winter Racing Festival at £82. He was down to 84 on Saturday, just gone. I dare say he might be down to 83 next week. Just running hard. He's a really strong running greyhound. A lot to like about him.
When I was saying the rat down Molly is a smashing little thing, you were saying, oh, she's 66 pounds. Well, she's 18 pounds smaller than the dog that finished third. No, which is quite a bit. I wouldn't like those two to be bumping in the middle of a race. But what I did love about Ballycount Liam, apart from the fact he's very likely raced, there were two dogs coming back and top him out of the second bend, and just the way he tracked for a big dog, the way he switched outside and avoided trouble, he probably going to lack a tiny little bit of what Aidan O'Brien likes to say in horse racing, tactical speed. Because when he went into third place, he almost lost it again, but then he ran on really strongly. He's a dog that you would imagine. I mean, he's a big dog with very little experience. He's a dog you'd imagine could improve a ton. And when you've already got 28, 29 on your card, you don't have to improve a lot to be a major player in big competition. So he's like a March 21 pup. He's an exciting prospect.
It doesn't take a genius to see, like, he's only had the 8 starts. I actually thought he'd a lot more racing done. I'm surprised to see he's on March 21. It just seems to be around for a while. I don't know why I say that, but Dylan, he doesn't look like, it doesn't take a genius to look at him and go, God, he'll do some run for 575, 600 yards, big 85 pounder, get loose in the run to the corner. I'll tell you something, it'll take a fast one to catch him.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what he is. He looks like he's just crying out for a trip. He's a big dog. He'll probably take a bit of time, and it was a big run the other night to only be beat a length and a half, and didn't get the clearest of passages in behind. But he definitely looks one that'll, when he steps up and trip. I know that tonight he won at the Winter Festival. He absolutely came out through the bars, which is rare to see from a dog so big. He still was only kind of doing 16:30 to the third bend, so I would certainly suggest that his future lies over further, but he's still in the semi-final, and he's a strong running sort, so he's got a chance too to get to the final. Big chance.
The 3 non-qualifiers there, Croker Spirit, Tuck Raven and Drubby's Lovable. Just want to mention Drubby's Lovable. She absolutely flew home in the opening round and ran on very strongly again the other night. Just one that, down the line is another that could be better over a trip, even though she's a daughter of Pastana. She definitely looks like she'll stay further than the 525 anyway. Moving on to the last of the heats, and wide open contest prior to the race. It was 3-1 the field. That's the way I saw it. In fact, I would have said nearly 7-2 the field. As it was, Disco Pants from a tricky draw out in 5 was sent off the 2-1 favourite. I don't think there was much value in that. for all that he was so impressive in the opening round, he's been in tremendous form. This was a draw where everything had to be done right, because you knew Crafty Bonanza was going to go up fast on his outside. And it was almost certain that the likes of Radical Hero and Check for Sir would go up well, not to mention Ballycrystal Ace. Now, as it was, Ballycrystal Ace didn't really get his start because I thought he'd be probably the most likely pace setter. But in the end, Dylan, I'll let you start here. Check for Sir. I think this was a statement type display from him. You know, he had won the Dublin Cup prior to Christmas. Obviously, he'd run in good company in unraced competitions, but this was his first real sort of, this was his first victory in, let's say, proper open company in top grade. And he did it like a proper greyhound.
Yeah, no, he ran really well. I was surprised he made the bend in front when Radical Hero trapped in front of him. I would have said, if you paused it there, I would have said Radical Hero was a certainty to lead around, but he showed loads of gears up on his outside, and he's just a really likable dog. I think that's 13 wins or something now.
Yeah, 13 from 21 and 4 second place finishes.
Yeah, and he's look, he's probably going to he's gone quicker. I think he has a 28-33 in his card. He surprised me a bit now the other night, I have to say. Like I said, I know the Ballycrystal dog didn't trap. He was the one I sort of fancy going into it. He missed the break, paced up, ran off the bend. But he surprised me with the pace he did show into the corner. Like you say, I thought Radical Hero, once he trapped ahead of him, would lead. But he's just one of them. He's a winning machine, isn't he? And he's one of those that when he gets out in front, he's very hard to peg back. And he's Carl has them type of dogs. He's plenty of them type of dogs that have loads of early gears and that, but this fella's just he's flying at the minute. And like you said, it's the first time really he stepped out of graded company into open and got the job done. He was unlucky, I thought, the previous week too, though. Ian, he was, I think the Toolmaker dog was very strong, probably was just turned too close to him.
I may have needed the run as well, you'd assume.
Yeah, he had a small break after he won the stake in Shelbourne in December, but he's I'd say there's a bigger run in him as well.
Yeah, Tommy, Check for Sir. You know, you say Carl's had plenty of those types of dogs, but I'm not sure he's had one as prolific. That's 13 from 21, and it could have easily been 14 from 21 if he'd held on the previous week. Just a really progressive young greyhound. Like, he's an October 20, and I say progressive, even though he's had 21 starts, he just seems to be still sort of coming forward.
It goes back nicely to what we were talking about earlier on about dogs maybe learning a little bit with racing. If you watch his first round of the Dublin Cup, it's the only night he got beaten in the Dublin Cup. He dived left out of traps, got all sorts of trouble, and that didn't stop him wanting to go in anyway. He kept trying to go in, and then got bumped off the first bend, ran a super racing defeat, right? Now, it's lower grade, right? So I was, like you, like both of you, I was kind of doubting it, you know what I mean?
I thought at that stage during the Dublin Cup that he's a really nice dog, but I thought he was destined for the boat because I thought he'd come up a few yards shy of this company. I'm reassessing that, and I think a 550 run up will also suit him more.
Yes, and I tell you what he does. What he does is he looks like a bigger dog than he is. If you know, he's 74.
I was going to say it. Whether it's his colouring or the gallop, I don't know. But he looks like an. If I said he was 83 pounds, you wouldn't even look at the card.
I wouldn't even. I wouldn't even question it. I wouldn't even look at it. He's a 74 pound dog. But I thought the night of the Dublin Cup final, it kind of struck me that I think it's the style of galloping. He has this kind of stride that when he's quickening up into the bend, it doesn't necessarily look like he's quickening up, if you know what I mean, because the way he gallops, it actually looks kind of smoother than it is. It's not all rushed and all hell for leather going to the bend, but he gets it done in the way he strides. I think you'd have to like him a lot. Look, it's going to get more difficult. This weekend is more difficult for him, and it will be a test. But I would forgive him if he came up short the weekend and think that I would still watch his progress, but because I think he's definitely learned quite a lot, and he is still on the up, even though, as you said, he's had 21 runs. He's actually still on the up, and he's a dog you would like a lot. And he's a dog I'd say he's the type of dog, if you're in Shelbourne Park for the remainder of the year, he mightn't necessarily be in the very top races, but I'd say if you're a betting person, you could probably rely on him and win plenty over the years, because you know what he'll do.
If the race is set up to suit him, he'll do everything in his power to win it, and he'll deliver. He's not a dog where you go, oh, I couldn't bet him at 6-4. I'll wait till next week when he's 6-1. No, you could bet this dog at any price once the company's right and once he's the draw.
I feel if you watch what I said a minute ago, if you watch that first round of the Dublin Cup, right, and watch his other race, and even Trap 4 last week was potentially very tricky. But watch what he does. He's still inclined to go in, right? But he's not hitting dogs. He knows they're there. So he's trying to get by them before the edges in. He's actually tracking extremely cleverly. What's the difference between the first round of the Dublin Cup and everything he's done since when he's been drawn off the rails?
Yeah,
it's remarkable. But it's a really clever dog and an improver.
No, really nice dog. Like a lot of time from. In behind him, Crafty Bonanza. Speaking of likable dogs, set your watch by him, Tommy. Like this fellow could be sponsored by Omega or Tiger or Rolex. Like, bang, does his run. He's beaten a length and a half in 28.50. Takes nothing out of him. He'll do the exact same thing next week. And some nights dogs will lead him. Some nights won't lead him. And when the dogs don't lead him, he'll go to the front. He'll be picked up into the third bend, he'll kick again. And that's what he is. He's won 17 times now from 49 starts. Dylan, you'd love a dog like this in your kennel.
Yeah, and he's such a natural trapper too. I know he misses the odd night, but sure they all do. But he's so quick away, like you say, 17 wins. Takes a fair bit of doing, and they're probably all open company, the majority of them. He just keeps on showing up in these types of races. And again, you'd look at him, he's not one you'd fancy to go and win it or by any means, but he's going to cause plenty of dogs plenty of problems because he is so good away. Like he's got an interest, and I think he hasn't got a bad makeup the next night either. In fact, I wouldn't be one bit surprised if he popped out another round the next night. But yeah, well, like you say, 17 wins. He's certainly given connections plenty of fun anyway.
Sure is. What a greyhound for them. And back in third, and you actually hear my commentary. I was watching the race for third more nearly than I was for the winner, because the first and second were sort of confirmed from the last bend home. But you saw Disco Pants and how well he had run in the opening round. You saw Toolmaker Wild right in his backside turning for home, and you go, the lad's going to get run out here. And Disco Pants is just one of those dogs where when he wins, the crowd lets you know he's won because he's named to be punted. He's a dog that's always a shorter price on the tote, perhaps, than he should be. But he really dug in to hold Toolmaker Wild. That's no easy task in itself, Tommy.
Oh, it was a cracking effort because he got a right hefty bump at the first bend. Could have actually rode it extremely well. It almost pushed him forward a little bit, which might be fortunate. But when you think the Toolmaker Wild is only a length and a half behind him at halfway, and as you say, on his tail, maybe even on his shoulder, almost coming off the last bend, it's a fair effort to dig deep and kind of hold off Toolmaker Wild, who we talked about earlier. When he picked up, I think, check for sure the previous week. So yeah, it's a smash and run. Just that Crafty Bonanza as well. You'd like the way he ran the first bend, even though there was a potential for trouble, and there was also potential that if he wanted it, he could have dived in across it. He kind of maintained a nice middle. He kind of ran a first bend like a seed should. Let's just say. Yeah. I think that you'd like that performance. And even though he was kind of slightly in at the last bend, he checked wide behind the winner, dug in deep as well. Crafty Bonanza. So that was a smashing effort.
It really is a lot to like about him, Crafty Bonanza. As I said, also Disco Pants. Just a contest packed with thoroughly likable dogs. And let's talk about 12 of them, because we have the two semi-finals to look forward to. The opening semi-final: Kilgraney Sydney, Cloneden Flash, Rathdown Molly, Bogger Hunter, Crafty Bonanza, and Clona Blue. I'll let you take the lead here, Dylan. What way do you see it?
Fairly open. Obviously, again, we spoke earlier, the Kilgraney dog has his draw again for the third week in the trot. They'll be happy about that. I think Rathdown Molly I think she comes away level even. I think she leads them. But it's going to be very interesting to see what turns close to her. I think if the Bogger Hunter dog turns second or even third, I think he has the pace from 2 to 3 to maybe pick her up, but he'd probably want to be picking her up by the third bend.
Oh, like yeah. He's not going to come from behind her off the last bend. No, he has to be in front by the third.
Yeah, and she's plucky, and like Tommy mentioned it earlier, she's just going to rail off the last, and he's going to have to come around her. And for all that he has loads of pace, it's all, the majority of it is probably from to the third bend. You know, he's not the strongest coming home. I think she holds the key here. I think if she leads, I think she is the most likely leader. I think I wouldn't be surprised, like I said, if Crafty Bonanza flies out on the outside, but whether he'd be able to lead her around. And I wouldn't discount the bottom dog, who might be a bit of a price. Like I said, he's just that type of dog. I'd say chase down anything, but it's open enough. I struggled on it, to be honest, Ian, but I'd probably take a chance. If I was forced into having a bet, and it's probably a boring one because she might probably be favoured.
I was going to ask you, what do you think will be favoured?
Probably Rat Down Molly on the draw. Just the fact that she's going to have that inside line, and I think she is the most likely leader. But it'll be interesting enough. I wouldn't be surprised if Bogger Hunter went off favoured.
I wouldn't be surprised the top went off favourite the way they priced.
Well, the way it was the other night, the way it was priced up the other night. But I just don't know if he has that. Even though he has the draw, I just worry about him at boxes. I don't think he's going to fly out. I don't think he's that type of dog.
I think he's going to need to fly out in this contest. Tommy, what are your thoughts on it? Briefly, I think I agree with Dylan in a sense where it's a very hard race to get a read on, but Rathdown Molly is perhaps the most likely pace setter, where Crafty Bonanza likely to go up well on the outside. Maybe the two of them battling on the corner. If Bogger Hunter gets a run in behind them, though, especially when he has a target, he's very quick down to that back straight. You could see him arriving either between the pair or inside Rathdown Molly. Well, probably not the inside of her, but you could see him arriving with a rush at the third bend, and that's where the race could be won.
If Kilgraney Sydney could go off a favourite in the race the other night, it'll definitely go off favourite again in this heat. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind. There's no doubt. And Dylan is right. You know, you don't know what you're going to get really with Kilgraney Sydney in a sense. But Claneden Flash is an issue for Rathdown Molly. Claneden Flash kind of pulled at the bend the last day because it got very tight, but actually flew out and was actually the first. Even your commentary and you're saying that Claneden Flash was best away and whatever. Even that first 25 yards could be a hindrance to the Rathdown Molly. Crafty Bonanza is a smart
and there's an argument to be made that there's no another holiday coming up on his outside. If he did get a run on the corner, Claneden Flash, he's also a big player.
Yeah, exactly. Like another holiday showed unbelievable pace to actually go by him, and it took a performance of that caliber or a dog of that ability to kind of to get by. So I just wonder if Claneden Flash wouldn't be a thorn in the side of Rathdown Molly now on Saturday night. I think the bookmakers will oppose Rathdown Molly. I think they'll take a chance. Now that's not to say that they'll be right or they'll be wrong. Rathdown Molly is in great form. If you'd ask me who's the best drawn greyhound in the race, it's probably a toss-up between 5 and 6. Crafty Bonanza, because it'll probably lead Clona Blue. Bogger Hunter certainly wants to go in. It's probably a great draw for Crafty Bonanza, and it doesn't run wide at the bend. It runs the middle course at the bend, which is perfect for a wide seed. I think Crafty Bonanza will put itself in a position to win the race. Whether it can win the race or not, I don't know.
If there's any shoulder rubbing on the inside between the likes of Claneden Flash and Rathdown Molly, Crafty Bonanza is the most likely pace setter. And if he gets to the front, he'll be doing 28.15. It's a case of catch me if you can.
Well, this is definitely a race that you have a bet based on price, not based on what you think will win the race. I think if Clona Blue was a round price, you take a chance that things will fall into place, that Crafty Bonanza might get in front. There might be a little bit of bumping between Claneden Flash and Rathdown Molly. Like if they price Claneden Flash quite big, you'd say I'll take a chance that it'll lead Kilgraney Sydney out of traps and just get and take that first bend from Rathdown Molly. I might take a chance on Claneden Flash winning the race because that's entitled to improve plenty as well. So it's a really, really difficult heat, and all depends on from my perspective. It all depends on what price to go before I'd even consider saying I'm going with that one.
Let's move on because it is a conundrum. The second heat is no easier, to be honest. Stream of Sydney's in 1, Galloping Sydney's in 2, Ballycown Liam, Check for Sir, Disco Pants, and Born Warrior. it's cliched, and it's cliched, but that doesn't stop me from saying it regularly. You could make claims for each of the six, although stronger claims can certainly be made for the likes of Galloping Sydney, Born Warrior, and even Stream of Sydney to a point from an ideal draw on the fence. Tommy, and that's not ruling out the chances of Check for Sir, Disco Pants, Ballycown will no doubt be the outsider of the party. That doesn't mean he can't get involved. Just a cracking little race. Like if this was the final, you'd be more than happy.
Yeah, I think Stream of Sydney has a great chance in this because if you're looking at Born Warrior, I don't think he's going to take a huge step forward to next week, and I don't think Connections would want him to. Maybe I'm completely wrong about that, but I don't think they would want him to take a huge step forward at this stage. Come along, let him progress with racing is what I would be thinking in my head, is what's happening there. And yes, it's a 16 grand classic and it would be fantastic to win. But I think Stream of Sydney could be, because the way I'm reading it is that Born Warrior has had greyhounds who are capable of going up inside him the last couple of weeks over 5.25. He has that again. He's got Galloping Sydney there, is capable of doing it. Check for Sir. This is the biggest test of Check for Sir's life so far, his career so far. And it'll be interesting to see where he is at the first bend. We'll probably pause it next week when we're talking about it and see, is he upsize, is he 2 lengths behind? That'll kind of give us a good gauge of where he's going to go and how far he might develop in his career. It's a good test. But with Galloping Sydney, we know we have a greyhound capable of going up inside Born Warrior. And that just might be enough. If it gets competitive around the first 2 bends, that'll be enough to hold Born Warrior up a little bit and maybe set it up for the likes of Stream of Sydney, who is phenomenally fast. She is ridiculously fast. And I just think that maybe that's what will happen. There'll be a bit of a buckle up front between Galloping Sydney and Born Warrior. Maybe Stream of Sydney might just pick them off. Now, Stream of Sydney will not be favoured, obviously, but Born Warrior almost certainly will be favoured. Galloping Sydney will almost certainly be second favourite. And after that, I don't know what way they'll price it. But
I think they might make Galloping Sydney favourite. He does 28. He does 28. He does 28, 26 the other night. He's absolutely blistering to the opening corner. The fact that Born Warrior went off 4-5 the other night, just a nod to Barry Call. I said he'd be odds on. Now I said 2 on, and he said evens. Now he tried to claim on WhatsApp the other night that I bet you there was a bit of evens available. Like it was 4-6. There was a couple of bits of 4-5, Barry. So cool your jets now, right? Cool your jets. No, but I think if they're willing to take on Born Warrior last week, they'll be willing to take him on again, because I thought he was a 2-1 on chance every night of the week last Saturday night. Now he goes off 4-5. Galloping Sydney, from trap 4, tricky draw, and while I was surprised that Kilgraney Sydney went off favour of the race, Galloping Sydney was still only 5-2 from that draw. Yeah, I just have a feeling, he does look stronger this year than he did last year, 28-26. Like Stream of Sydney ran on very strongly behind him, but she was never getting to him over 5.25 yards. And if he gets loose again, I think he'll take a world of catching.
Yeah, he will have plenty of competition. But I'm not going to argue with that in the sense that I think it's extremely plausible that he will go off favourite. There won't be much between them. It'll all depend who they come for on the track on the night. So I think if it's priced up, by any of the firms during the week, the Born Warrior will just shade it. But that's not to say that that'll be the case on the night. But I think Born Warrior will shade it early in the week if it's priced, and it'll be down to what people come for in the end. I do think the bookies will be happy enough to take a chance against Born Warrior at the moment over 5.25 early in the season, even though he's running extremely well. They'll be happy enough to take a chance against him just for the moment.
Just before I let you go, Tommy, on this subject alone, the winner of the competition, in your mind, more likely to come from the second heat than the first?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Dylan, what's your take in the second heat, briefly, because we have a lot to cover still?
I like Born Warrior, just on the draw. I just have, when I seen the draw first, I was straight away drawn to the top. Thought she'd a lovely draw. She rails well, but I just have a slight worry that from boxes there might be trouble between the inside too. If you look at Stream of Sydney, when she traps, she takes a step right, no matter where she is, whether she's in 2, 3. You look at her run the night she was in one, the Winter Festival, where Galloping Sydney actually better. She turned right straight from boxes. She just has a tendency to do it. And just looking at, I know the sectionals, the last 2 nights, Stream of Sydney 208, Galloping Sydney 209, 208. I think if they come away level, I think Stream of Sydney, if she turns right, I think she's going to come into Galloping Sydney slight coming together. I think Born Warrior might pace up, get around out wide, and it'll just be a matter then if Stream of Sydney is close enough to close that gap, where you know what Born Warrior is going to do off the last bend. But I just have that worry early on our boxes that the top two might come together, and just because of that alone, I would probably sway towards Born Warrior.
Yeah, it's a pertinent line of form to take in there. That the Winter Racing Festival you spoke of there, Dylan. She did take a bump at boxes. Now it was Lynchy Boy in 2, so he's cutting in. She does take a half step right. Now Galloping Sydney Racing 3 went up straight as a die. So there is a chance he'll just avoid her. But I see it's definitely it cost her the race. She's beaten a short head. That bump at boxes that night, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but she's even done it. It's not even just out one. She just has a tendency to do it. Even out looking at some of her videos back when she was in 2 and 3, she just whatever way she comes out, she kind of comes out right and then straightens herself back up. But it would just be a worry from a betting perspective. Not saying I'll have one in it, but if I was, I'd be swaying towards Born Warrior just for that reason.
What win the competition, Dylan?
Usually at this stage, you have something, but I think it's all going to come down to the draw in the final. I know it's boring.
It is bloody boring. Just give me a name, will you?
Born Warrior.
Man, Tommy.
I give you the lotto numbers for Wednesday night. It'll be easier.
I'd sooner the Euro Millions for tonight.
You have enough.
What'll win a top?
If you were getting paid a euro for every podcast you do, you'd be a billionaire.
yeah. The one podcast a week is I'm flying. Well, what'll win it, Tommy?
Let's go with Stream of Sydney.
Yeah, well, if I was getting paid a euro every word of rubbish I spoke, I'd be gazillionaire, as Johnny Deneen would say, a gazillionaire. All right, let's move on from the Gold Cup. It is a great competition. We look forward to Saturday's semi-finals. A couple of things I want to mention. Good stake in Kehoe concluded on Saturday night. Tommy 1-2 for Pat Guilfoyle. I think he's a future in this game. Do you know that, Tommy? He's not a bad trainer. Scaglietti was the bigger price of his 2, but he got to the front early. He's very strong. Once again, one of these dogs that Peter Sutcliffe purchased after a couple of races and has really developed into a nice dog. A big run the opening round, got loose the other night, won in 31-20 odd. Just a really strong running greyhound. Just a nice winner.
This is a proper performance, and the reason I say that, I think, is because Magical Mary turned close enough and never really looked at any stage of the race that it was going to get there. And Magical Mary ran well, but just Scaglietti is a seriously fast dog. If you go back to his form, won an A3 Sacred Jewel distance. We talked about this off air, and then went there to the National Puppy Stake, qualified, and actually up the style was beaten in the same heat that night. Undisputed won it. And then was it purchased at that stage, Ian?
I don't know. I don't know when he was purchased. I see he was an outdoor dog, and I was just looking at his card, assuming that he was sort of purchased after 2 or 3 races. That would sort of make sense to me. I think he ran as an outdoor dog back in July in Shelbourne Park. So I assume he was probably bought out of Limerick. Something got the Ives, and the rest they say is history. Won a dual distance in Shelbourne at 30-20, 31-29. Looked a nice dog. I didn't know if he'd turn into much thereafter. I didn't know if there was much more improvement in him, but he ran very well in the opening round, the National Puppy, and was withdrawn from that. And here we are. This is next competition. He's after picking up a decent prize. Just a nice dog. One to look forward to for the remainder of the year. Also, the Cork Cup got underway on Saturday night, Tommy, at Kehoe Park. Only 10 spots separated the fastest and the slowest heat winners. Pretty remarkable. Of course, sponsored now by Time Dog Food. Best of luck to Willie Rigney and John Fox on their new venture. Hopefully works out great for them. 2 men that certainly know their onions when it comes to dog food.
and in fairness, it's probably a great thing for the sport too. There will be in sponsorship, as I say. So yeah, and that stake after that round the other night at Kehoe Park is nearly impossible. I'll give you the Euro Millions numbers as well.
Name the winner
while I'm here.
Dylan, there was a very big run on Friday night at Curraheen Park. A dog called New Import making his racing debut for a certain Graham Holland. Oh yeah, looks a nice type. 28:31 on debut. Looks a real prospect. This fellow just showed lovely early speed into the corner. Just kept on piling it on. Now I don't know what he's beating. Obviously, it's his debut, but as I said, wins in 28:31. The son of Kinloch Bray. So my experience of Kinloch Brays, they improve with age. You know, they're not flashy dogs that come out and do big runs in the first 2 and 3 starts. So to see this fellow doing 28:31 as a July 21 whelp can only be encouraging. Had some useful trial form, but this was far and away a much more improved performance out of Delboy's Kushti, who happens to be a sister to Burgess Books. So it goes back to the famous badminton line. Clearly a very exciting dog.
Yeah, like you say, still very young, big dog, and like that, I think the Kinloch Brays usually take a bit of time. So, obviously in these pups races, like you say, it's hard to know what's in behind them, what they're beating. But to the eye, it was very impressive, and I'd say in the coming weeks we'll learn a lot more about him when you probably see him up around Shelbourne Park or whatever. But he's definitely a serious looking prospect.
Yeah, Hill of Port Syndicate. Obviously a very, very nice dog, Tommy. Certainly one you'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, who knows what we learned, but one week behind. I was just while you were talking there, I was trying to find out when Scaglietti was changed. I think for his first couple of runs he ran for John Byrne as outdoor hawk. And it was actually that early that he changed hands.
Okay.
Just after that. Actually, when he ran in Limerick, he was with Pat.
Yeah. New Import, getting back to it, rumours that Graham had sold a couple of the runners that he had in the unraced stake down at Clonmel. You know, I think a couple of them won on one of the first 2 nights of the festival, Dylan. Rumours that a couple of those were sold. So if he's selling dogs capable of doing 28, 40 and 50 around Clonmel, it was probably obvious he had something coming up in behind. I dare say they may not be just New Import. There could be a couple more to come.
Yeah, and like that, saying that it's hard to know in these pups races what they're beating, but if you actually look at the second dog, he qualified in 28:79, I think, around Cork back in November.
Yeah,
and he's actually a half brother to Epic Hero and Priceless Jet, so I'd say he's not too bad either.
Yeah,
so,
and if you look at the rest of the card, it wouldn't suggest the track was flying by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, New Import, certainly one to put in your notebook. And gentlemen, go ahead, Tommy.
Sorry, I just want to say and as you'd hope, like in terms of sections and all that, there's plenty of room for improving. 338 is good, but it's about equivalent of a 212 maybe, that's our 210, 212, that type of run in Shelbourne Park, or that type of section in Shelbourne Park. It bring a nice bit. You'd imagine it'd bring a nice bit off that, and the pace to show it down the back to go clear. And you would say that maybe even came back a little bit the other night. Yeah. Again, it being the first run, there's a huge amount to come off that.
Yeah, no, definitely a dog to keep an eye on. Want to mention a couple of things from Sunday night. Romeo Magico was named as both the British bred Greyhound of the Year at the GBGB Awards. I suppose they had no real option. He was the only British bred winner of any of the dog categories. All the remainders were, and yet he was the only Irish trained winner on the night. He also was named Standard Distance Greyhound of the Year. So great night for Graham Holland and David Firmager, proper Greyhound, and been recognised for his heroics at Toaster last year. Also want to mention our old pal Barry Call picked up the feature at Shelbourne Park on Friday night, himself and Matthew collecting a €2,000 prize with Black Bridges, looking a very nice type. I've been very taken by her. She's won 6 of her 8 now, and like Barry tells me, her coat, like he's almost ashamed to bring her in. He said she still looks like a bear, so he's hoping there's plenty more improvement in her. Dylan, always nice to have a winner, and it's always nice for one of our own to have a winner too.
Yeah, text Barry after Friday night. She's she's just so good away, isn't she? She's a right bit of early, and she's as genuine as anything. So they've already had plenty of fun out of her, and when she stays sound, they'll have many more good days with her, I'd say. And if that's the case, I wasn't talking to Barry much about her, but maybe when you see them still with the puppy coat or whatever, maybe now when the better weather, the warmer weather comes in, she might even take off and Who knows where the ceiling is with her? She might end up an Oaks pitch down the line, maybe.
Yeah, no doubt, Tommy. Barry raised the glass to her over the weekend.
Only bought a new shirt with the proceeds.
No comment. Also, I want to mention the students were in again last Thursday night at Shelbourne Park. Not obviously as big as last year, but given the fact it was after a bank holiday weekend, the students were skint. The average spend was way down from the previous night. I get the impression, but once again, great to see them there. The atmosphere provided was fantastic, and as we've said before, even just if a small percentage of them come, Tommy, it'll be great for the game.
Yeah, we need to showcase how good it is. I mean, things are not like they were one time. Things have improved a lot, let's just say, in the sport over the years, and continues to do so. It is a brilliant sport. There's absolutely no question about that. You only have to talk to like, I don't train greyhounds. You don't train greyhounds. We have greyhounds. I think I have a runner. I think I have a runner tonight. I think I have a runner Wednesday night. And a pup that who's going to have his first look at the track, I think, tomorrow morning. So sometimes, like, it is a brilliant sport, but you talk to the likes of Dylan and the likes of Barry Call to just know the passion involved. Like, those people aren't doing that in sport to do anything only good and actually enjoy their greyhounds and actually rear them to as if they're their own children. Like, these dogs are treated like royalty, and they give so much pleasure back, and they are treated with that sort of same respect. So it is a brilliant game. You can get a few students in and get them to give them a chance to see what it's about, and talk to the likes of Dylan, and talk to Barry, and talk to those lads who are there. That's how we have a future in the sport.
Yeah, Dylan, great to see people coming through the styles. Obviously, on Friday night, big crowd at Shelbourne Park as well, ahead of the rugby. There was 1,000 French in Shelbourne Park on Saturday night. It added a real continental sort of twist to proceedings. And again, a tremendous atmosphere. All enjoyed themselves. Great to see good crowds coming through the styles.
Yeah, and it's very important, like you say, it's to get new people into the game. And like, there's nothing like it from my point of view. Like, I was sort of brought up on it, but even now, it's like, I look forward there going every morning, getting the dogs out, going, doing what you're doing, galloping and that. And it's great then when you do go racing and there's a big crowd and a great atmosphere. And it was the same in Newbridge a few weeks ago. There was a final to Eamon Wheatley, and Newbridge now of a Friday night is what it is. Most Friday nights you get your locals in, and some Friday nights more than others. There's an extra bit of a crowd, but it was great to see a big crowd for a good final there a couple of weeks ago, and it just makes the night even better. The noise around the place, and like you say, I think it's very important to get new people into the game, and these student nights in particular, I think, are a great idea as well. And hopefully there'll be plenty more. Is there another one coming up?
There's another one Thursday week in Shelbourne Park. Yeah. So I'll be there. 6 races, half an hour between each race, Tommy. I struggle at the races. I have to tell you, I was only short of bringing the iPad and watching something on Netflix between races, because obviously there's music playing, so they don't need me to talk and talk and talk. The students have no interest in listening to me. As I said on Twitter the other night, I could have been speaking Mandarin. They couldn't have cared less. But
we don't either.
True. We've said a lot today. Last but certainly not least, Juvenile Classic starts on Friday night, gentlemen. I would dare say there'll be plenty of people sitting back with a notebook in hand. It's become such a hugely important competition over the last few years in particular. Tommy, you'll be keeping a keen eye.
Oh yeah, because a lot of the year will hinge on it, and they'll be and as they go through the year, they'll be in Shelbourne, and they'll be in Toaster, and they'll be in Curraheen, and they'll be in Limerick, and they'll be everywhere you can think. It is fantastic, start to finish. It's just, it actually works. It works well. I know we do lament the fact that there's probably not a top class 5-2-5 competition in Shelbourne Park through later in the year, but the rest of the program works fairly well, and it brings these greyhounds that we're going to start seeing this weekend right through the year up to the Derby and even beyond into the Ledger and whatever. It brings them that far. Okay, some of them might be young enough, but this is the start of it. I know we've had the Gold Cup on now, but this is the start of the fresh season, as I would call it, where we start to see the new blood that's going to come in and contest, look for Born Warriors title and whatever else. So yeah, this is brilliant. No matter, like we have no idea. We'll only look at trial times, and we look at breeding before Friday night. We've absolutely no idea really what to expect. we can guarantee by the end of it, we'll have a better idea how the season's going to shape.
Dylan, yeah, it's happening more and more often. A lot of the dogs that go into this juvenile class will be owned by the big boys. There's no chance of them changing hands, and those that do change hands, you'd need to be, a truck sort of, backing up with the beep and just truckloads of cash in the back to buy one or two out of it. But that's the way it's gone. The best dogs, the best of pedigree, best pedigrees, and it's going to be clear from the outset, that what the stars are, and then you'll have those few that come through as well that didn't really shine in that opening round or two. But it's just one of those competitions where even the most cynical and skeptical can't help but tune in and get excited about these youngsters.
Yeah, that's it. Look, we all get excited about the big stakes, but more so I love these kind of juvenile puppy stakes, because like you say, you just don't know what's in it. You know there's a few superstars, but you don't know how good they might be. And like you say, you're going to have some maybe more forward than others that might burn it up early on, and might have a few slow burners in behind that mightn't come into their own until later in the year. But it's very exciting. It's you look forward to when the card comes out and you see who has what and what way, the breeding and things like that. So it is very exciting. Like you say, there's dogs there that we don't even know about yet or haven't seen yet that could go on down the line and might win a Kirby or even a Derby or anything like that.
I'll make a prediction. I think there could be a couple of good Droopy Sydneys in it, right? I'm just going to put that out there, okay?
I thought you were going to say Ice on Fire there, Ian, for a minute.
You never know. I hear there's a few knocking about. Listen, gentlemen, a pleasure as always. We've a wonderful Gold Cup underway again, thanks to our sponsor, Paddy Kehoe Suspended Ceilings. Juvenile Classic starting on Friday. Things are really starting to heat up. Before you know it, we're into the Kirby, we're into the Easter Cup. Then we'll be talking English Derby, Champion Stakes Derby. Listen, the year is just really starting to pick up pace. Great few months ahead of us. The very best of luck to everyone who has a dog, be it a grader or an open class performer. But that's it from Talking Dogs on this Monday evening. My thanks again to the exiled one, Tommy Lyons, and of course to the assassin, Dylan Brennan. We'll see you next time. Good night, good luck, and God bless.